If you just bought a lovely new super slim OLED or LED TV and you want to put it on the wall, or even if you've got a current TV that you're thinking about wall mounting and you're not really sure how to go about it, then what I've done is I've come up with 7 things to consider before wall mounting your TV. Just before I start, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just give us a quick thumbs up. Although this list is in no particular order, the first one I'd really consider is the first thing that you do need to think about, and that's the location of where you are thinking of putting the TV. Now, all I'd say is make sure it's not opposite a window. What you don't want is when the evening sun comes around, then you've got a glare on the TV, because it doesn't matter how good the TV and the TV screen is, if you've got direct sunlight on it, it can make it a bit more difficult to view. Also, a lot of people tend to put TVs above fireplaces. Now, if that's an inactive fireplace, or if you're not using it, that's okay. If it is something that you are going to use in the winter, it's not recommended to put it above the fireplace because the heat from the fireplace could damage the TV. Think about where people sit in the room. I suppose have a look at the plan of your lounge or living room, wherever it is, where you're going to have the TV. Have a look to see where people sit and think about the location of the TV as far as the viewing angle of it. Also, it depends on the TV itself. So if you've got something like an OLED TV where the viewing angle is very good, then that can also make a difference. If you've got an older style TV, I suppose a little bit like this is just really one we use as a display in a showroom, where the viewing angle isn't quite as good, then that can make a difference on the location as well. This tends to lead quite nicely into number 2, and that's the type of wall that you're going to install the TV on. Quite a few people will install it into a solid brick wall, and that's always the best solution, ideally. I know it's not always an ideal solution. A lot of people are installing TVs on internal walls or stud walls, plasterboard walls, or if you're in America then drywall. But that can make quite a difference to, I suppose, where the TV goes. Don't be put off by installing a TV on a plasterboard wall or a stud wall, because you can find that sometimes it's a little bit easier than installing it into a solid brick wall, and I'll cover that in a bit more in a moment. But that's really quite important. Consider where the TV is going. That tends to lead quite nicely into number 3, and that's the type of bracket that you want your TV to be mounted with. And what I mean by that is, do you want it to be flat mounted? So do you want it to be super slim and to go far back to the wall as possible, or do you need it to angle down slightly? And then the third option, do you want it on the cantilever, or an arm bracket as some people call it, where you can actually pull it out and move it round? Now, all of these are possible, but the only thing I would say is just think about, again, going back to number 1, where you want the TV and the wall bracket. If it's going into, say, a central location where you need it to move around, so if you want to pull the TV out and move it around, say if you've got a lounge diner, if you want to, for example, have your TV facing one way while you're having your dinner, and if you want it to face another way while you're in your lounge, that's sometimes, we've seen that several times, then that is brilliant. The only thing I would say is when you're actually mounting it on the wall, make sure that is a solid brick wall. Or if you are going to put it into, say, a stud wall, you would need battening behind it. So you just have to make sure that the fixings behind the wall are really, really solid. I wouldn't really recommend trying to install a cantilever type bracket or the arm bracket on just a plasterboard wall. You'll find the fixings, although they can be quite good, they're not normally that strong holding your TV. And the last thing you want is to spend hundreds or even thousands of pounds or dollars on your new TV and then find as soon as you pull it out that it drops onto the floor. Again, we've seen it many times. Also, the type of bracket you buy can vary the depth that the TV sits at. I mean, this is, to be fair, it's an older style TV. We've had this up on display for a couple of years now, but it serves a purpose for using in the showroom. Now this one, okay, it's fairly flat to the wall. There are much slimmer TV brackets that we sell and that are available on the market, but I will just show you behind there. So you can see there that it's pretty flat back. That's probably as far back as we could get it using this type of bracket. But when it comes to, again, choosing the bracket, then I'd always recommend going for something that is quite slim, and you've got the flexibility as well. Almost jumping back a little bit, when it comes to the location of your TV and when you want it to sit, how high do you want it? So that's something that is really important. A lot of people are putting them way too high, especially if you're putting it, say, above a fireplace. Last thing you want to be doing is just sat there watching the TV with your neck like that. Ideally, so in an ideal world, what you want to do is to have the centre of the TV at your eye level when you're sitting down. Now, I know a lot of people think, well, that's really low, but it's actually really comfortable when you're watching it. Now, clearly, if you're thinking about putting it above a fireplace, then you're not going to be at that sort of height. I'm not a huge fan of putting TVs above fireplaces. I think it's way too high. I suppose what I'm getting at with that, if you are going to wall mount it above a fireplace, for example, or somewhere slightly higher, make sure you put it on a tilting bracket so that you've got the ability just to angle it down slightly. Number 4 on the list are the screw locations and the holes on the back of the TV. Now, this is normally referred to as a Visa or Vesa fitting, depending on how you pronounce it. But essentially, so I'll just show you on the back of this TV, because it's easier than clearly taking the other one off the wall. So on this one, you've got the holes here. So there's one there, and to the other side as well. This is what we refer to as a 2x200. So it's 200mm by 200mm as far as the fitting of the bracket would go. And what you need to do is to have a look on the back of the TV just to see the location of the holes, because that can make a huge difference. A, as to the type of the bracket you go for, and B, the location of the bracket when you're wall mounting it. On some I mean that's quite a standard fitting now, a 2x200. You will find on some brands of TVs, some manufacturers will put bizarre configurations on there. Some are, say, either 1x100, which are mainly on smaller TVs, so that's okay. Some of them are quite wide. You can find there, say, 3x200. Also, have a look out for where the bracket will sit. Not so much on modern TVs, they're a lot better now, the manufacturers, but on some of the earlier flat screen TVs, you'd find some of the bracket locations would go over, say, the aerial socket or the power socket. And from a wall mounting point of view, that was really frustrating. Number 5, are you going to have a soundbar underneath the TV? Now, this is something a lot of people do now, where you have a soundbar as part of the TV package. Clearly, the sound on modern TVs, I'll be honest, is not that great. It doesn't matter how much you spend. The standard sound is never that good. So by adding on a soundbar, then it can make a huge difference to the whole TV experience. But I suppose what I'm getting at is if you're going to mount it like this, where it's flat to the wall, clearly what we would want to do ideally is to have it fairly close up to the TV, and that's quite easily done. But really what I'm on about is if you have a wall bracket, say a cantilever, or if you have one that's on an arm that you want to move around, then there are certain brackets available where you can have an arm underneath the bracket to support your soundbar as well. So that's something to have a look out for. Number 6, and this is quite a major one for me, it's the cabling and how tidy you want it to look after it's finished. Now, some people are just happy to have their TV on the wall, have the cables hanging down in between all the devices, and that's it. They're just happy to have the TV on the wall, and they're not too fussed on how it looks. Personally, I hate that. I think it's quite a lazy way of doing it. The next stage would be to have some trunking by the TV. So what you could have, for example here, we could have some plastic trunking just running down the side, and you can channel all the cables into that. That does look okay, especially if you can paint it the same colour as your wall. There are certain trunkings available that are paintable, and they can look quite smart. The ultimate solution, and I suppose in theory like we've done here, are to hide the cables so you can't see anything. Personally, I've done several installations where I've actually chopped out the plasterboard, put the cables in, and then replastered over it, and then painted over it, or your wallpaper, whichever one it is, just to make sure that it is a perfect finish at the end. Clearly here, because this is just a stud wall, it's quite an easy installation for us. So all we've done is we've actually taken the cables through the other side, and then we sort everything out the other side. And that's really what some people want to do, and that's quite an easier way of installing a TV. And then finally, number 7 on the list is to think for the future when you're wall mounting your TV. Now, I know it sounds a little bit bizarre when I say that, because most people you're thinking, well, all I want to do is put my TV on the wall. But what I would try and get across to customers, first of all, think about the size of the TV you're going for. At the moment, people have gone up and up in screen sizes. So if you go back, say 15-20 years, people were quite happy with a 28-inch TV, and then each time they change the TV, they're going up 32, 37, 42, 55, 65, they keep going up and up. TV is getting bigger and bigger. And all I say to customers, when you're buying a bracket, just make sure, A, that it fits this one comfortably, but possibly think about the next TV. I know it could be several years down the line, but you could find by buying a slightly bigger bracket to start with, as long as you can't see it around the side, because that can look quite ugly, then if you buy a slightly bigger bracket now, then that could save you having to redo all of this work in the future. And I suppose the second part of the think about the future is the cabling. I just mentioned about either trunking, or especially if you're going to plaster some of the cables into the wall to make it look a really good job, then think about the future when it comes to the cabling that you're putting in. There's nothing worse than sinking a cable into the wall, especially if you've plastered and painted and wallpapered to make it look really good, and then you realise that you buy a new product to go with your new TV, and then you want to sink another cable into the wall. So just think about the future on that side. So whether it's things like optical cables, it could be HDMI leads, it could be network cables, there's a whole host of different cables to put in. So just think about the devices that you want to connect to the TV and sink those cables in. And sometimes I do recommend, even if it means putting an extra cable or two, it could be an extra network cable or an extra HDMI lead in at the moment, because the whole cost of doing that is not a huge amount, but in the future could save you a whole lot of hassle. I hope you found it useful, 7 things to consider before wall mounting a TV like this. Now what I'm going to ask is, if you've wall mounted a TV yourself, how did you get on? Did you put it up by yourself? Did you get a company to do it? Also, how did you do it as far as the cabling? Did you just let the cables hang? Did you use trunking? Did you sink the cables nicely into the wall, or go through a plasterboard wall and send them down? There's quite a few ways of doing it. But I'd really appreciate it on your experience on how you've wall mounted the TV. I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just give us a quick thumbs up. I do always ask for comments on the video, whether it's good or bad, whether you liked it, whether you didn't enjoy it. Also, if you've got any comments on it, so if I have missed something. I know when it comes to wall mounting TVs, there's quite a lot to think about. I might have missed something. If I have, just pop it in the comments. Also, if you've got any questions on wall mounting the TV, then we have done a lot over the years and we've got quite a bit of experience, then again, just pop it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.